Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for April 29th, 2022. I am Benji Fisher, moderating, and also present are Andre Pedrosa, Offer Schall, and Ralph Kohler. A small group. I think some of our regular participants are either still in Portland, Oregon for DrupalCon or on their way home in transit. Or maybe just tired after an exciting week. Sort of the big news coming out of DrupalCon is that both Claro and Olivero were declared stable, and Claro will be the default admin theme for both Drupal 9.4 and Drupal 10. Olivero will be the default front-end theme for both Drupal 9.4 and Drupal 10. And thanks to some work from Offer and me, Claro will also be the default admin theme for the Umami demo profile and not just the standard profile. So that was exciting. And I found out Tuesday evening, which was several hours before Dries announced it during his keynote speech the next day. So I felt like I was an insider there. Hello, Thomas. And I think Offer is getting ready to share his screen to discuss some mockups. Go ahead anytime you're ready to discuss some mockups for the next generation of the Drupal pod browser plugin.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I do not have like mockups or anything. It's the actual debugging state of where we're at.
Okay.
But I'd like
better.
to take you through what I'm thinking to do and see what you think about it. I think that would be helpful. So also perhaps I should prepare the same thing in the existing one and kind of compare what's today's experience versus what I'm planning to do. Okay, internet, you can do it. Okay, so when going today, if anyone not familiar with DrupalPod, it helps contributing to Drupal by installing an extension. Hopefully in the near future, it would even become an integral part of Drupal.org pages, but for now it happens through an extension that adding content or information on top of it, and when clicking on a button, an environment in the cloud is open and people can start working on it. So today when I click here, you can see my pop-up window of DrupalPod.
Yes.
Okay. So it has a little bit of rough debugging information here of what it was able to read from the page. It allows you to choose branch or patches, which I notice confusing people because then they're not sure, like, should I do both or what's happening? It allows you to choose which core version do you want to work on. Again, there's an issue here of need to keep it updated because we're no longer with 8.9 or 9.2. We have 10 and 9.4. And it allows you to choose no install profile or using standard Umami or minimal profiles, which, by the way, I updated last night, and now standard come with Olivero and Claro, and Umami come with Claro. So yeah, updated everything as is. So, and then when you're clicking on this button, you jump to DrupalPod opens for you with all these selections. So one of the issues that I notice is for people to even after they install it, to remember that there's an extension here to click on in order to integrate it. So the new version, forgive me about all the debug look of how it is actually planting icons of DrupalPod. Again, be happy to hear other ideas of what can happen, but it looks for every patch and branch as you look through the things, and you can see the red things is like a button for patch. So instead of going to the extension side on the top right, you actually see in front, as you're reading an issue, it will show you something. Probably there's going to be a pop-up or something that would tell you when you hover. If you click here, it opens DrupalPod for you. Now, one of the things I noticed that I wish to do is as follow. When you would click here, you're going to have the actual extension. Right, this is now huge and not just a demo, but here I thought you would set up your defaults. What PHP version do you usually like to use? What core version do you usually like to use? Do you like the admin toolbar being added? Do you like the vel being added? Right now it is, but you'll have a choice to say, no, I want it, cleaner or something like that. Once you make these default decisions and it remembers it for you, then the idea is that next to the icon's supposed to open it. So if I found this branch and that's what I want, clicking on this icon, I think before opening it, I should show another window or something that tells you, here's what's about to open. And then I was planning to have details next to it. So clicking on a button is about to open Drupal. Details would allow you to change for right now. It would take your defaults, but you can still change them. Maybe for this specific scenario, I do not want admin toolbar, or I want to change the PHP version, and then clicking a button to launch Drupal. So that's like every patch and branch, which is where you're getting things. You'll have the ability to click in order to open. You'll have the ability to click on details to change the usual options you usually have. And I think also bringing back something around here. So it's in the page, but similar to how the current browser extension does it, that it's summarized for you of, okay, which branch do you want, or patch, which I think patches are going away soon. But in the meantime, both a one place close to the top right part of the page, to be able to select these things. Also thinking that soon everything, I think, if I understand it correct, move to GitLab. But I don't think that's going to be a problem because anyway, it's a browser extension. It will read a page and would be able to extract all the information.
Okay,
So
why don't we
yeah,
let people give some feedback at this point before saying any more?
that was exactly what I was about to ask. So
Okay.
these are my general ideas, and I would love to hear if people have, what are your thoughts about that or other ideas and what we can do.
I have some thoughts, but as moderator, I should let other people go first. Ralph, go ahead. I see you want to mute yourself.
Okay. On one hand, I like the idea to provide separated buttons for each patch and for the merge request, and also the option to adjust the details. That's a really, really good idea. One feedback about the initial screen you've showed with the widget in the current situation where you have, for example, the merge request active and, for example, exactly, and then the Drupal core version, because in that patch the version is 9.4 and then Drupal core version is 9.2. It would be easier for people if it would be aligned with the version, as for example, for the merge request, aligned with the version for the patch for the issue in general, and for the patches for the core version for the patch.
In displaying the information, or
no, not the display, but yeah, the display of the information is module version 9.4, but underneath you have branch and then Drupal core version 9.2.
Yeah,
but per default it should be adjusted to the version of the module,
right.
I think.
Yeah 100%. Yeah, it would be like, like right now, because of some limitations, I kind of tweak things to every time you open Drupal core version, it would actually ignore this one and would directly take it from the issue page. That would allow me to open Drupal 10 issues and all that without making changes. But yeah, and I I don't know if it's possible, but one thing I would like to do that I noticed some branches, like maybe this branch, was made for 8.9. I don't know if there is a way to tell when someone's selecting this was based on 8.9. So if you're about to open it with like 9.4, you should expect a lot of it, like, I don't know if there is any way to find out where a branch was made from.
But if that would be possible, if that could be auto-adjusted, that would be awesome. And ease the head scratches for people. Or possible if the user is setting is going with the default, and it's in that case it's setting to 9.2, and the version is against 9.4, then could also cause some inconsistencies and possible problems. Not really associated with a patch.
Yeah. Thank you.
Andre asked in the chat, he hasn't tried DrupalPod before, and he asks whether it launches a Drupal environment with a selected patch applied, similar to simple test. And I said the short answer is yes, but maybe Offer, you'd like to give the longer answer?
Sure. So when we'll use the working version right now. So this is an issue page about drop-down menu. It can find if there are any forks or patches. If I choose any of them and I make these selections, when I click here, I'll get very similar to VS Code environment in the cloud. So you only need a browser. Nothing runs on your own computer. It's using a service called Gitpod. And it would apply the patch, or it would connect the branch. What's really nice about how DrupalPod does things, if you try to do Drupal core development, often it's more difficult to work with Composer, adding modules, having like Drush, things that are usually make our experience much nicer when we work on clients projects. DrupalPod create a very similar environment to what you're familiar with a regular Drupal site, even when working on core issues, by symlinking and some sophisticated stuff. So the summary of it is, when you make these selections, the environment you'll have will be ready. You don't need to make any extra commands and get all of this ready. Also, it's using, when I mentioned last night, I update stuff, it has pre-existing environments in order to accelerate this whole process and make it much faster than waiting for a full site to be deployed and installed and all that.
So
okay, thank you. That's definitely very good.
Sure. To check it, by the way, if you go to drupalpod.com, you'll get into a GitHub repository with instructions of put the extension, start using it, enjoy.
All right. Thank you.
Right. So a sort of intermediate version is, yes, it does the same thing as simple test, but it also gives you an online development environment where you can edit the code and generate a new patch or update the branch or what have you. Anyone else have comments on the proposed changes?
I would just say that I agree with Hoff, that being able to have the default to be the same as the current patch would be good if possible to do.
Mm-hmm.
This definitely sounds like a good improvement, because I try to contribute to core as much as I can, and jumping from one issue to another, we would have to change the default, like sometimes it's to Drupal 10 to Drupal 9. So having the program being able to do it automatically would definitely be a good thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that is the plan. So for now, just so you know, Drupal, when working on Drupal core issues, DrupalPod would automatically open whatever this version here say that it is. So you don't need to make any special adjustments. Actually, right now you cannot make adjustments. In the near future, where the new extension going to be ready, yeah, it will. My plan is to make this version by default, but as you click on details of something, you'll be able to adjust it and say exactly what you want to do with it. Also, to keep in
All
mind,
right.
this is a special scenario of Drupal core, where when we open modules like feeds or something, feeds have their own version of the module. Plus, we need to know what core version of Drupal do you want to have the setup enclosed in.
I think you may have just answered a question I was about to ask. So I'm going to ask it, and I think you just answered it. So I want to confirm that. For those instances where you have someone working on multiple versions of the project, because they've got a newer version that is in beta, and they're like it's a new version of feeds, and they're doing a complete rewrite. Is that something that's very visible if someone opens up an issue that was on an older one, but it also applies? Like, does it take that into account? Is all I'm trying to ask.
I'd love to get more information. So let's try this one. I just put something from feeds that is RTBC. It was created in 2014, but RTBC updated pretty recent. If I open here, I will get that the module version is 7x20 beta 5. And I will be able to choose the exact core version I want to work on. Is that what you're asking about? Or are you asking about the module version itself?
I was talking about the module, like, so you've gone there and you've looked at that, but there's nothing that really warns me that I'm working on, like, so module version 7.x isn't really, like, I'm assuming that we wouldn't use that with any of these Drupal core versions that are currently visible.
Right, that would be a Drupal 7 module.
Yes. And that happens. Like, we're keeping.
Okay, like to analyze the structure of the version and notify the user, this is not probably not compatible with anything that is not Drupal 7.
Correct.
Is that what you mean? Okay.
Right. Yeah. Like, I'm worried that I don't know. I can't recall how standard our older versions were for projects. So for contrib modules, my concern is that someone opens this up and tries, like, they go to a contrib day where everyone's working together in a room. They're kind of new to this stuff, and it would be very highly confusing for them because it doesn't actually throw a warning and say, hey, you're working on Drupal 7 module here because you pulled it from the queue. But all of these other, all of the Drupal core versions that are coming up, none of them are going to be compatible.
Yeah, okay. I wrote it down. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear that it's not going to work. And given that it's not going to work, the sooner we inform the user that it's not going to work and bail out, the better.
It's more of a new, it's a new contributor issue more than anything. It's just a quality of life.
Yeah, and I think that's where I wish Drupalpod to excel, of really giving you as many hints and extras that are possible while keeping it concise and nice for more of the veteran users. So everybody are clear on what's happening, what's about to be open, or issues you might encounter, because we kind of know if you'll try to open this as Drupal 10, we're not expecting anything to work.
Yep, thanks.
So can you go back to the new version that's in development? So
yeah.
As I said, I have a couple of responses. So first of all, I think it's great having the links in the page, both for discoverability and for already finding out which patch or branch we're going to apply. So that's a huge improvement. One thing I don't like is having the separate details element the details element labeled details,
Mhm.
because it is not clear to me that that is related to DrupalPod and not some other thing added. So what I would suggest is that when you click on the DrupalPod link, you said you wanted to have some sort of confirmation screen come up. Put the details in that confirmation screen
Nice. Okay.
rather
So,
than where they are now.
so if I click on buttons, let's say this opens actually, it'll have a clear, another button of launch DrupalPod as is. These are the good settings, but also would show you here are the few things you can change before launching the actual system.
Exactly, filled in with the
Okay.
defaults you've got and
Yeah,
the
okay,
branch
I
and
like
so
it.
forth.
So it's easier to look at ahead of time, just like this one. There's just a button, there's nothing else here. And when you click on it, you get to either make changes or click the next button. That's these are good to go.
Right. Another comment is that if the PHP version is something you're allowing people to choose, it would be really nice if you could have some sort of a warning or disable the launch button if the PHP version is incompatible with the core version. And if people, 9.2 is still supported, and I don't think it works with PHP 8.1.
Mhm.
And on the other hand, 10.0 is under development, and it doesn't work with 7.4. So there's no, I don't think there's any PHP version you can choose that is going to work with all the currently supported versions of Drupal. So
Yeah. I guess one of the ideas I have now that we're talking, maybe as you choose core version, you would get the recommended PHP version, which you are allowed to edit if you feel like. Does that make sense?
yeah, if you could do that, and then probably you wouldn't want to make a PHP version a global preference. But yeah, if you can just put in the recommended PHP version, that's what most people are going to want to use, unless they're specifically addressing PHP compatibility issues.
Yeah, that's what I also want to do. Like even with core, I was thinking a drop down of options, but it also allow you to really type 9.32. Like if there's anything very specific you want to define, or start working on 11.x before it's there, like kind of giving people the ability to use a drop down, but also type freeform.
Yeah.
Should I also, so it sounds like in the button idea that we talk about by hiding details, so it's really kind of similar to here. If this is the button, now I have options, very clear where I'm opening the actual thing, while these are already pre-filled because we already know which branch or patch are selected. But my question is, do you think there's 2 layers of information that I should, like maybe most of the time, like a profile, install profile is a very common thing to change, but maybe PHP version should be a little hidden under advanced option. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah.
Like, should I, basically I'm asking if it's okay to, when you click on a button, you get details, and then there is advanced option that are closed and waiting for you to click if you really need anything advanced.
Or maybe you
also, what would you
sorry.
put in advance if it's there?
Go ahead, Ralph.
Or you might even provide an option in the global options to say, have the advanced options collapsed or expanded per default, like with a Views UI. So a few people often change the advanced options maybe, and for those it's cumbersome and they have to all the time have an extra click, and that way they're able to have all the options on the click available at hand.
Nice. Okay. I added that. I mean, I'm writing notes here.
I just have one more suggestion, which is that you should create a general project, like a non-module, non-theme project on Drupal.org for DrupalPod, so that we can have issues and we can give people credit
Well,
for.
The good news is that this is already in the making. We even have documentation on Drupal.org.
Oh,
I'm proud
thank you
of.
so much. Wonderful.
So yeah, my plan. So just yesterday, some of these things were fixed. So I'm very excited about what's coming. And that means that I will finally be able to run DrupalPod from Drupal.org. So the extension that you open, usually open the GitHub DrupalPod.
Uh-huh.
But once we get people to open DrupalPod from Drupal.org, that means that when you want to push code, you don't need to do anything. It's already like pre-approved using Drupal.org authentication.
That's
Today,
great.
there's like a whole mechanism to add SSH key and something cumbersome that's
Mhm.
annoying. And once everything is working, which according to yesterday seems like it is, people will just be able to open the environment and push code as long as they click, right? Like, because today you still need to click create branch and get write access, something like that on the actual page. But once you do that, it's a one-time thing per issue, I think. And then you'll be able to push code. So I am planning, my plan is to move it completely to Drupal.org, manage issues and credits and everything through here.
Great. So you're a couple of steps ahead of me.
Yeah, and I wish also in the documentation, there's so many things and that you can learn and tricks and things that I wish people would use more, like the snapshot idea, or if people enjoy PHP Storm, they can have DrupalPod running in the cloud, but their own PHP Storm locally would work perfect. So things like that are definitely possible, but we need to
That's
get.
right. I saw an announcement that Gitpod and JetBrains have just
Yeah,
entered in a partnership.
exactly. Yeah, if I'll go to Gitpod.io, I think
So
I don't have it here.
I think it's not a merger of the two companies, but just a partnership
No,
between
yeah,
them.
it's just because JetBrains themselves have their own version of cloud computing. But if you open gitpod.io/preferences, you would see you can choose an editor. And there's a VS Code. This VS Code inside it, they have some issue with dark mode. But if you choose PHP Storm, and you can choose latest release or not, when you open DrupalPod, every time it will actually open it in your PHP Storm. So the whole environment is set in the cloud, nothing on your machine, but your machine is using the actual edit. Or you can also use, by the way, your own local VS Code the same way. If for some reason you don't like the browser interface of VS Code, it would run your VS Code from your local machine while the actual development environment runs in the cloud. So this happens here in preferences, if anybody's interested. I want to ask also about that idea of bringing kind of do you think a summary of like what today's extension allow us to do? Where is it? Here, where you get all the patches in one place and choose them to launch DrupalPod somewhere here? And if yes, where should it live? Is that clear what I'm asking? Like, instead of the new version would allow every patch and branch would have an icon where you can initiate DrupalPod. And I'm thinking to add one global one that would list for you all the branches and all the patches available with similar details and launch DrupalPod right there instead of diving into the actual comments.
Ralph, go ahead.
I'm not sure if it would be if it wouldn't be too confusing that way, having all the options in the main menu or in the sidebar in the issue summary. But maybe because I like it more, the contextualized buttons that you have next to each patch or next to each merge request, a button that is way more helpful in my humble opinion. But instead, for that issue on the top in the sidebar summary, maybe a button for access the latest patch or merge request for that issue, that someone doesn't have to comb through all the available patches and all the merge requests, but get the latest one.
Yeah.
So that's also preventing the thing that someone has, for example, worked on a merge request, then someone else makes a reroll with a patch, then again a new merge request is open, and then it just gets confusing.
So I agree with the first part of what Ralph said, and I think that, you know, a select list with, as you saw, dozens of options is not a very good user experience, and it's much better to have the links in context. But for the second part, once you scroll to the bottom of the description, you get to this table that has the latest patch.
This one?
Yeah, it has the latest patch or merge request. I don't think we need to duplicate that somewhere else.
And we can even ask for more. Yeah, there's a table that actually summarize or list all the files that were uploaded from latest to oldest. Yeah, and it starts as a much smaller list. I chose an issue that has 100 patches, so I know it's an extreme case, but it's not uncommon in Drupal.org.
Oh no.
Yeah, I guess I wish, I don't know if some of these are changes. Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say that this table already hides some of the patches that were considered irrelevant during the development of the issue. So I think it's one more advantage to just relying on this table, because if you have a list with all the patches, some of them were already, like, it happens that someone sends a patch and, oh, sorry, I forgot to change a comma and send the patch again. And these would be listed if we had a complete list. But in this table, we have them summarized because many times people hide the irrelevant patches.
Right.
That's a good point. We don't want to give people options that they shouldn't use.
Yeah, I guess the main reason I would think of putting anything here is kind of to help people a quicker access to whatever they want. But I'm not sure if the only real way today to work on Drupal.org issues is to at least go to the bottom of everything and see, okay, right? Like that's my flow at least. What's happening here? What's the latest? What patch are they talking about? Like this is how I'm trying to look at issues, unless I, see where it's at, and then I go to the top and start reading. Okay, like how did we get here? Depends on how long it is and what's the recent comments. But I don't know, maybe there is no value in, if that table already exists, woohoo, going to the top. So if this table already exists, because here the screenshots, we don't see other patches and branches, I guess, because here we're going to get also on top right away the latest branches on it. Maybe there's no reason to add it here.
Yeah, it seems to me the only advantage to adding it there is that some issues have long issue summaries.
Yeah.
And you have to scroll to the bottom of the issue summary. That seems to me the only advantage, and I don't think that's enough. We should have a skip link to the bottom of the issue summary.
Most recent. Look at that. Bing. I never knew it's here. I always saw it, but never knew it. Yeah. So if it does exist somewhere here, it should display like 3 patches and 3 branches. Is that like a good, or just the last one? What would be helpful?
I just think you should let people scroll to the bottom of the description and find it there.
So not to add anything.
Yeah, that's my
Okay.
suggestion. Which of course, deciding not to do something doesn't have to be the final decision. We could always.
Yeah, I mean, and finally, when we have like these big contribution days like we had in DrupalCon, I'm getting feedback on like, okay, here's the pain points, here's what works well, here's what required changes.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, and I don't know if this matters. I was trying to make my browser extension follow markup, so accessibility and everything kind of going to be built in. So I think I'm going to use the button as a detail page, as a detail markup, which open up all the other options.
Sounds good. Rather than a modal or something, which is the way it currently works.
Right. That's always like, no. And I think there's enough space here to show whatever information I need to show. So that would be good also, right? Like that's where the content was meant to be displayed in the first place. So I can use exactly that space for all I need. Yeah, and one more thing that I never knew what I should, here it's called Open Dev, and if anyone has better words for what I'm looking for, I'll be happy to get some feedback on that. Like, what do you call the button that opened the environment?
Start?
Launch environment.
Okay.
Go, exclamation point.
I guess now also that we have documentation, should I put like a Drupal pod documentation, like a link, sorry, not any of the documentation itself. Where are we? Oh, that's the new one here. So when you open here, maybe even next to advanced option, like read more about DrupalPod, and then you can go in and see stuff, or this would be.
Sure, if it's something that people don't use very often, I come back to it, I haven't used it in 3 months, the documentation link would probably be helpful.
Okay. Cool. Thank you so much. That is super helpful, because just trying to think myself of what can be better is tough. And with a group, it's so much better.
We're glad we can help. And if
Yes.
if you'll create an issue, we can link to it from today's usability meeting issue.
Will do. That's a great idea. Now that we're transitioning everything to D.O. Thank you.
And from what was said at DrupalCon, I think that yes, patches are going to be phased out. I'm not sure what the schedule is. We'll still have them for a while, but the plan is ultimately to have just merge requests and not patches anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the plan is when GitLab is happening, but then I don't know what happened with older issues. Yeah, so it's okay. As long as we have them, we'll support them.
Yeah. So there's 14, go ahead.
Benji, one more question, like just what's your experience? So you look at an issue
Mhm.
and it has lots of patches and branches and rerolls and stuff. How do you make sense of what is probably a good starting point if I want to look into, like, what would you open when there's plenty of things happened recently?
I would normally open the most recent patch or merge request. And if there are both patches and merge requests, then I have to spend some time thinking about which one to use.
Okay.
And if it's complicated and if the first thing I try doesn't work, then I have to read through the recent comments to figure out what's going on. And sometimes I'll start by reading through the comments to figure out what's going on, and then it becomes clear which patch or merge request to work with.
Yeah. I didn't know if there's any existing indicators or something that's like, oh, that's a way to see this was a good branch, or.
So as Andre said, people can hide patches. So, if they follow that practice and if there are patches that are definitely obsolete, that helps narrow it down a lot. I don't think there's yet a way to hide merge requests as saying, no, don't use this branch.
Yeah, I don't know if there's, a hide. Yeah, and merge request seems to be a much more group work, right? Like there's not so many branch for each issue. Usually there's one branch that people continue iterate on.
Yes, usually.
Yeah. And because of how Drupal, at least for now, does things, I'm also planning to add, if you are about to start working on an issue fork, and you didn't click the give me permission rights, I forgot what they call it. Like it would kind of, I'll need to find where to post it that a person would know, before you open DrupalPod here. This is something you have to do in the Drupal.org page before you can move forward. That, or if I just open an issue that I found something in Olivero and I didn't do any patch or fork or anything, there's an issue. You could open, in theory, a DrupalPod for it. But again, I want the information there to help people see, here's the button that you start by creating a fork or branch, whatever they call it. And then, I think there's 2 clicks you need to do before you can actually start working on things. So I'm looking to, where should I put these warning or messages about what is the minimum required? You can actually start working on something.
I guess I would say disable the confirmation button, the launch dev environment or whatever it becomes, that button. Disable that if they don't have permission to start, if they need to do additional steps first. And when you disable it, add some explanation text of what they need to do.
Okay. Great. This is super helpful. Thank you.
So we have 10 minutes left. Does anyone have things they'd like to bring up that could fit into 10 minutes? So let me just mention that one other thing that happened at DrupalCon is that Christina Chumias organized a Birds of a Feather session where we talked about the admin dashboard idea. And it was just 30 minutes, which is about enough time for going around the table once. There were about 6 or 8 people there. Ralph was participating over Zoom. So we didn't make a whole lot of progress, but I've I've started experimenting with just using Layout Builder in Umami. And I actually think that's a good way forward, but other people can work in other ways at the same time. And I know, Ralph, you have ideas about how to collect sort of different opinions on what would be useful in the dashboard. So I think that prototyping and research can go on simultaneously.
Benji, I saw your demo, which was really nice.
Thank you.
Of course, I thought that, hey, you could create this in Drupal, make a snapshot, and then people don't need your computer to be on when they want to see how it works.
Maybe I'll do that.
Okay. But it was very nice. And I think there's two parts here. Like, I think what your demo showed is technically it doesn't have to be super complicated. Like, we have a lot of existing building blocks. The main question is more about, okay, what's useful? How do we get more modules to extract content so it has become beneficial? Is that correct?
Right. And that's the research part. What should go into the dashboard?
Yeah.
What the actual need is for people. And I hope I will be able to finish either today or tomorrow the write-up, and I'll post it in the UX channel. I'm over it already the last 2 days. And one thing I did also aside that is look in other CMS systems about their implementation of dashboards. And I found also a few links I could post in the UX channel. The Typo3 community did a whole blog post as well as a usability study about dashboards and their implementation in Typo3. And Joomla has also an extensive blog post about their implementation, and there are a few others I found, but they're quite interesting, at least for some inspiration in a few parts, maybe.
That's great. We're not the first group to think about this issue. We should not be starting from scratch. Thanks for doing that research. Okay, so there's a little more than 5 minutes left in the hour, but let's just call this meeting. Thanks all for attending. And we'll definitely be talking about the dashboard going forward, and look forward to see or implement all of these ideas for improving Drupal.
Thank you so much.
So, see you next week, I hope. Bye-bye.
Yep. Have a nice
Bye.
weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye all.